Testing， 各位委員早晨。咁我哋
Good morning, members. We have already formed a quorum. We have already passed the appointed time. I've already asked the staff to invite the deputations in because this meeting is to meet with deputations and the chairman of the Bills Committee. I'd like to declare interest. I'm a professional accountant. I own property, but then I've been involved in property-related work in my office. But then my employer does provide advice and has been consulted on this. Mr. Andrew Leung, I'd like to declare that both myself and also my company own property. And yes, Tony Chair, I own a real estate consultancy firm, and I also own properties myself. Mr. Sin Chung Kai, I own property. Well, for this kind of ownership, do we have to declare because we've already made a declaration in the registration form of the LegCo? Well, we have also already consulted the legal advisor, but then we were advised to make our own decisions. So I think it's up to members to declare. Yes, Yu Shiwing. Thank you, Madam Chair. I personally own property. My company also owns property.
Morning. 睇先，我哋團體係咪準備好 ？OK。本人謹代表法案。
On behalf of the Bills Committee, I'd like to welcome all deputations and government representatives for attending the meeting. This is the Bills Committee on Stamp Duty Amendment Bill 2013. You're here to give us your views. Please put on your earpiece, and you can also choose the channel. 0 is floor, 1 is Cantonese, and 2 is English.
Okay, we have live translation. 我現在呢就
I'll first invite deputations and the individuals to speak. Everybody will be given 3 minutes. And while you speak, you only need to highlight the salient points of your submissions. You do not need to repeat all the content of your submissions. According to our standing practice, the written submissions that we have received have already been uploaded to the webpage of the Council, and a copy has been given to all of you here. And if any member here has yet to get a written submission, or if you'd like to supplement your written submissions, you're welcome to do so. I'd also like to remind you that your submissions and also your remarks will not be covered by the LegCo Powers and Privileges Ordinance. On top of that, deputations should not speak in mixed mode of language, or else simultaneous interpreters will find it difficult to translate what you say. And this morning, we just received the administration's response to the issues raised at the last meeting, and the response has also been issued to members for your information. And if there are no questions from the deputations, I'll be inviting you to speak in turn. And after the deputations have spoken, I'll invite the administration to respond to your remarks, and then the floor will be open to members. You do not have to worry, even if we are not able to respond to all your remarks today. We'll be collecting and collating your views, and we will also set out all the views in the form of a table, and then the Bills Committee will be scrutinizing those views and raise questions with the administration if necessary. All right, if there are no questions, then the floor is now open to the deputations. Yes, Secretary. First, Dr. Hui Fai, Hong Kong Economic Development Strategy Research Center. Good morning. We're the Hong Kong Economic Development Strategy Studies Center. My name is Hui Fai. I'd like to stress that we are a non-government organization giving advice to the administration with regard to the cooling measures. I do have some commendation and other criticisms. Well, since the last 2 years with the introduction of the special stamp duty, I think the administration has finally got it right by introducing the SSD for both commercial and residential properties, and that should be commended. But then in terms of our criticisms, first of all, the stamp duty should not be changed lightly and arbitrarily, because we should not be imposing this on all the business sectors and also the SMEs. I can cite a very simple example. For a unit costing some $4 million, if you go for a second charge, then you'll be able to get a 90% mortgage, and then all you need to do is to pay about $0.9 million, but then now you will have to pay $180,000 more as stamp duty before you can buy it. So it's about 90% of the original reserve, and as a result they will have to take out further loans before they can meet the requirement, and this is the situation for both the residential and the SMEs. So they will have to pay more before they can buy their own properties. Well, actually, through the land registry, we can do something about it. For those owning more than one property, they should be required to pay a punitive levy of 5 to 10% as special stamp duty. That would already be adequate, and the administration should not be taking it back lightly. And therefore, we have this counter proposal for the administration to consider. Well, under the framework of the cooling measures, for those first-time home buyers, there should also be 4 exemptions. The first is for charitable organizations, second is for redevelopment or redevelopers, and thirdly, for those who are now divorced. Well, originally they might have jointly owned a property and now they are divorced, and fourthly, they have bought a property, but then it's been 3 years since then, and they no longer own any further property, and if they want to buy another home, then they should be exempted. I hope that all of you here, together with members of this council and the administration, you'll be serving as the gatekeeper. You'll be able to do a good job. I can also provide some information to you. You can also check it online. In fact, according to the Development Bureau, well, actually, over the past 3 years, on average, for every unit, the number of units that have been completed, well, there are about 10,000 units every year in average. That's why the administration should have increase the supply of land, and there should also be the construction of new satellite towns in North Lantau and the outlying islands in order to speed up the pace of residential development and also housing supply, and that will also balance it should also try to balance the supply of both commercial and residential properties before they can meet the demand. Sorry, I've overrun on my time. I have to leave early because I'm otherwise engaged. But then if you have any questions, you can also contact me. My name is Dr. Hui Fai. All right, your time is up. Thank you.
Hong Kong.
Thank you. We have 7 points. Firstly, we disagree with the inclusion of the measures for non-residential property, as it adversely interferes with small, medium and large local, Hong Kong and international businesses. Secondly, the government's proposed bill labels all purchase of non-residential property as speculative. This is simply not the case. Purchase of non-residential property by businesses can be a constructive investment that makes good financial sense to businesses and contributes materially to the Hong Kong economy. Such investors are clearly not speculators in the market, and therefore they should be exempted from the proposed double stamp duty, DSD. Third, rent is a major cost for all businesses in Hong Kong. Purchase of office space can allow businesses, including SMEs, to lower major long-term operational cost elements. For example, the British Chamber of Commerce acquired its own office in 2003 as a non-speculative long-term investment for its own use. This has been a good decision, and it's a reinvestment into Hong Kong. Fourthly, DSD should not penalise genuine investors in office property looking to hold commercial property as a long-term investment and a strategic business decision. DSD will strongly discourage all businesses from acquiring office premises for their long-term development. especially SMEs with limited capital. Investment into long-term rental property will likewise be discouraged, thus limiting diversification of ownership and occupier choice. Fifthly, DSD will materially harm Hong Kong's regional competitiveness and attractiveness to international businesses and discourage overseas businesses in foreign direct investment and setting up regional headquarters. But this is a government policy, and therefore DSD goes against that government policy. Sixthly, to be constructive, the Chamber suggests that non-residential property acquired by businesses for its own use as a long-term investment should not be subject to DSD and should not be payable in the situation when such property is acquired for non-speculative purposes and was held for a period of more than 3 years. We believe this would meet government's aim of combating short-term non-residential speculative resale activities, the flipping that we've seen in both residential and non-residential, whilst ensuring Hong Kong continues to attract genuine long-term investors into the non-residential property market and allows small, medium, large, local and international businesses to contribute to Hong Kong's economy through investment and reinvestment. I'd like to finally say that I sat in the Bills Committee, and although it's not been widely reported by any of the Hong Kong media, the Bills Committee did vote on a non-binding motion for the government, the administration, to withdraw their proposed bill. This was voted on and unanimously carried by government to withdraw the bill. So I think that people here should be aware of that, and the media should be aware of that, because it hasn't been appropriately reported. Thank you.
Wai.
Mr.
Next.
Commerce in Hong Kong and Macau.
Thank you and good morning. Austerm broadly supports the government's initiatives to address speculation in the residential market. But our concern is that the proposal as it currently stands to double stamp duty applies equally to what we would call speculative and non-speculative acquisitions of non-residential property. If the measures are aimed at speculation in the market, then they should only apply to those types of transactions which are considered to be speculative transactions. The measures should not have a broader and unintended application to long-term investors. In our view, a long-term investor is not a speculator in the market and should not be penalised. This is similar to the special stamp duty, which doesn't apply to transactions held for more than 3 years. There seems to be a carve-out similar to Singapore's, which could work for Hong Kong. Hong Kong has similar concerns to what Singapore is facing, but Singapore has had a carve-out for non-speculative transactions in the commercial sector. So we would strongly recommend that there should be a similar carve-out in Hong Kong. And if a property was sold within 3 years, for example, then there can be a clawback, which should be easy to introduce. I think we would stress that if the government is looking to introduce these types of measures, the government needs to make sure that it spends the time and effort to introduce measures which don't have an adverse impact on the broader market. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Wai.
Thank you. Next. Mr. Lawrence Wong, Hong Kong Chamber of Professional Property Consultants Limited. I'd like to say why property prices have not come down as some might have expected. In fact, last time I already raised this point at this Bills Committee. Well, for the various cooling measures, other than the fact that they have reduced demand, it has also resulted in a reduction in supply. Other than the first-time home buyers, well, for people trying to change property, or they might have changed their investment by swapping properties, they will have to face more risk. They will also have to face more costs.
Most people would choose to continue to hold onto their property as an investment. As a result, in the market, you have fewer sellers. So instead of a demand side management measure, it becomes a supply side management measure as well. So property prices won't come down as a result. Only the volume of transaction has dropped in response to the special measures, special stamp duty. and it's getting more and more difficult to have property prices going down because the owners can hold on to their properties and they are refusing to sell at lower prices. There's a body of opinion saying that the level should come down by 20%. This is a very dangerous viewpoint. The volume of transaction is worse than when we had SARS epidemic. If you still say that prices have to come down to a greater extent, at least by 20%, this is a risky viewpoint. On the other hand, mortgage should be improved to allow buyers to get a mortgage, for example, for a small unit costing $3 to $5 million. If you want to trade up, it's difficult because property valued at $7 million or more would only get you 60% mortgage. So trading up is getting more difficult. So you see fewer people trading up. So whatever the government wants to achieve, first of all, we must do something to provide greater flexibility in the mortgage system. Mr. Wong Ho Ming from REDA, the Real Estate Developers Association of Hong Kong. Well, the administration has rolled out a number of measures to control the demand, including the DSD, BSD, and so on and so forth. But we are losing out because it has done more harm than good. The reason why prices were going up was because there was a low supply and the quantitative easing policies introduced in other economies. The government should do more to make sure that we have a stable supply in the public and private housing sectors to meet a low short-term demand, as well as to arrest the expectation that prices will go up in the long term. But the administration has instead chosen to implement administrative measures. These measures may work in the short term, but it would further destabilize the market, and the investors will have to face greater uncertainties. And this time, the special stamp duties measures would further damage our image and our status as a free economy, because you are telling investors that they are no longer welcome as far as property investment is concerned. Developers are worried, and their worries are, I think, well justified. These measures are supposed to take care of the interests of local buyers and to dampen short-term speculation. But our proposals for improvement and amendments have been ignored. Some exemptions have been provided, but they are not good enough to meet the needs of genuine property users. For example, the 6 months is allowed for the trading up for the purpose of exemption from the special stamp duty. It's difficult for buyers to trade up under this system, and it's difficult for them to buy uncompleted properties. And there's no sunset clause, there's no indication on when or under what circumstances the special measures will be scrapped. REDA welcomes the new exemptions provided for redevelopment projects. We want to make the three suggestions. There should be a rebate system. If there's no transactions for 2 years after from the date of assignment, there should be a refund. And then the trading up exemption should be changed from 6 months to 24 months.
Cordell's is a law firm specialising in commercial real estate. We act for many businesses from large to small, and we were asked to make representations to the Bills Committee by several specific clients who are concerned about the impact which doubling stamp duty would have on commercial property. Our clients are representative of the commercial sector in Hong Kong, and they are worried about the impact that the new provisions will have on their ability to manage their occupancy costs over the long term. Doubling stamp duty on commercial property increases acquisition costs substantially, and if businesses are unable to buy a property as a result, they can only rent, and of course Hong Kong is one of the most expensive places to rent. This leaves businesses at the mercy of uncontrollable rental increases, and that's particularly true for smaller businesses who may not have much by way of cash reserves to pay the additional duty. It also impacts on Hong Kong's competitiveness as a regional hub, as other jurisdictions such as Singapore have introduced certain carve-outs for commercial property. The government wants to avoid speculation in the commercial property market, which we support. However, the measures proposed as they stand have the unintended consequence of penalising non-speculative acquisitions of commercial property as well. We think that this unintended consequence can be avoided by providing that stamp duty is payable at the old rates on commercial property, which is acquired by a person intending to hold it for more than a certain period, such as 3 years. However, if the property is then sold within the restricted period, further stamp duty would be payable. An alternative might be to provide that stamp duty is payable at the new rates initially, but that a refund of 4.25% could be claimed if the property had not been sold within the restricted period. We don't think this works, however, as businesses would still have to find the money up front for the additional duty, and that could be very difficult for them. The first amendment I mentioned, which was in providing that duty would be paid if the property was sold within the restricted period, would still discourage speculation, but would protect the interests of owner-occupiers and long-term investors in Hong Kong. We have considered how the legislation could be amended to achieve this, and believe that the amendments required are straightforward and could be modelled on the regime for special stamp duty, which already provides for additional stamp duty to be paid if a residential property is sold within certain periods. If the Bills Committee would find it helpful, we'd be happy to provide our thoughts on how the legislation could be amended in writing. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. 下一位，唔該。
Thank you. Mr. Peter Wong, the Lion Rock Institute. Today we have many people from the property sectors, agencies and agents who are watching this meeting because they are facing unprecedented level of discrimination. This is rare because we are taking measures against a legitimate business. In the Middle Ages, Jews in Europe were banned from buying properties. It's similar now. It's similar by the way of measures introduced by the government to discriminate against estate agents. And many people regard property agency as the last employment opportunity that they can take up, because they may not be well educated, but they may be good bargainers, so they become estate agents. But in a civilized community like Hong Kong, even sex workers get some people to speak for them, but no one has spoken for the estate agents. So Well, they are worse than sex workers in the eye of the administration. So how can we allow such a discriminatory law? If the government is bent on doing this and in introducing the special stamp duties, shouldn't there be some compensation? When we culled our chickens in the light of the epidemic, there was compensation pay. Mr. Wang Yunfei wanted to reduce property prices by 20%, but half of our people own properties. Who would compensate these property owners for their loss? So how many people are trying to buy properties but can't? Has there been any formal survey conducted on the number of people who try to become property owners? And also the government should consider how to compensate the estate agents who are losing out because of the special stamp duties, and also to the property owners in Hong Kong. Next, Momentum 107, Mr. Ng Kim Hwa. Well, many people do have this dream that they would save all the money they can, and one day they can become property owners, and then they would have a stable environment to live in. And they also want to make investments, or maybe to buy another property as investment, just like Mr. Matthew Cheung, Secretary for Labour and Welfare, who owns 8 properties. He lives in one, and he collects rent from the rest of the remaining 7. He doesn't have to depend on the government for a living. And also Mr. Professor Arthur Lee, his family owns 43 properties. So that's the dream of many Hong Kongers, that you can own a property for your own occupation and also for investment. And it's also something that many people strive as a life objective. But under the CY Leung administrations, many measures have been introduced to just take away people's dream. In December 2012, SSD was introduced, and then there was BSD and then DSD. These are draconian tax measures which have frozen the property market. The total transaction number has reduced to 3,427, much lower than the monthly average of 6,778. With the market frozen, then we can see that there's a growing demand, but a shortage of supply. So simple economics work out that prices will only go up, and first-time buyers find it even more difficult to buy the properties, and I count myself among them. And these measures are having adverse impacts on both local people and also for foreign investors who would not now come to Hong Kong to set up regional headquarters or to invest generally. Hong Kong will lose out as a whole. Many people have dreamt of having one property for occupation and another for rent. I hope the Hong Kong administration would come to the realization that these measures are ineffective in curbing property prices. Please take them back.
Finally, with the freezing of the market, some real estate agents' livelihood have been dealt a severe blow. On the 10th of June, and also in this morning, there are some 3,000 real estate agents. They have attended a series of events in objection to this move, and they do not rule the possibility of taking part in further actions. Thank you. Next, Hong Kong Real Estate Agencies General Association, Mr. Wai-king. Thank you, Madam Chair, members, and all the deputations here. Well, at the two early meetings, we have already said that under the current SSD and BSD implementation, the number of transactions has plunged. But then in terms of luxurious apartments, there might have been a price drop. But then for the other sectors, there has not been any significant drop. Well, recently there was some 5,000 eligible home buyers. They can take up secondary HOS flats, and as a result, prices for HOS flats have also fetched up. It shows that there is an imbalance in terms of supply and demand. That's why we have this situation. I'm not a prophet, but then using my professional and rationalism or common sense to analyze the situation, all right, the administration would from time to time come forward and tell the public to be more cautious in buying flats, but then apparently they've only adopted a symptomatic approach in resolving the problem. They've distorted our economy. We believe that this is only going to damage the public's interest as a whole. Let's imagine if the property market does plunge, then what is going to happen to the public? All right, we'll be seeing the prices coming down, and still we would not be able to buy a flat. So let's just imagine if we are going to have a return of the era whereby there are many negative equity assets, then the situation would be even more serious, and then the officials will come out to say that, all right, the SSD will be changed or it will be scrapped. It will be too late. So I think the situation now is like serving officials are now trying to bury the bombs or landmines, and then in the future government and officials will be taking the consequence. I urge the administration to introduce this sunset clause so that there can be greater transparency, and then the public can make early preparation for that. But then I'm of the view that there is no need for us to introduce this sunset clause altogether, because the situation is that it has already become a reality, and many would like to well, you may wish to think hard about what I just said. That is about the dire consequence. I urge members to work together so that with regard to this stamp duty amendment bill, you should work for the early withdrawal of this bill. I think the most important thing is to increase supply of land, and also for old flat owners, they can buy new flats, and then in the calculation of stamp duty and other duties, they should be given more resistance and allowance, and then that would make sure that there will be more supply in the market. Thank you. Next, Property Agencies Association, Mr. Tony Kwok. Yes, my name is Tony Kwok. I'm a chairman of the Property Agencies Association. I'm also one of the 8 major trade associations. I'm also one of the conveners. We have already provided our submissions to the Bills Committee beforehand. Well, in attending today's meeting, I'll be speaking on behalf of the joint conference and also the association, so that you understand better the views from the sector. But then what's inadequate here is that we do have some members here. They can also supplement my views. Well, all in all, our sector is of the view that for BSD, SSD, and PSD, all right, these are the cooling measures, and as a result of these measures, they have dealt a very severe blow to the property market, and that has also damaged the overall economy of Hong Kong, and still they have not been able to resolve the problems in the property market. And if the administration doesn't take heed of good advice, and if it does not scrap all these cooling measures, then the sector is of the view that there will be 3 lose situation in Hong Kong. Number 1, Hong Kong's property market and also Hong Kong's overall economy will suffer. Number 2, Hong Kong public will not be able to get what they should enjoy in the property market, including those who would like to swap properties, and also those who would like to invest in real estate, and also those who would like to buy properties. And thirdly, for those in related sectors, they will be dealt a severe blow. We expect that in the real estate sector in the next 6 months or so, 10 or 20% of the agencies will have to close down, and some 10 to 20% of the traders or practitioners will have to lose their jobs. And if that should continue, then some 1/3 about 2,000 companies will have to close down, and about 13,000 practitioners will be losing their jobs. And the Property Agencies Association is of the view that, for non-permanent residents, for the non-first-time property, they should not be made to pay this tax, and there should also be a sunset clause so that there can be a review or even scrapping of the legislation. And the property market should also be divided into property investment market and also housing or residential demand market, and there should be different measures for different sectors, and there should also be a medium to long-term housing policy. And the sector and also the joint conference on the 21st of June held a meeting, and the 8 major associations are of the view that the administration should accept the views from the sector. Number one, the cooling measures should be scrapped immediately, and also for companies comprising only Hong Kong permanent residents, they should be exempted from the cooling measures, and also for the period of exemption that should be extended from 6 months to 12 months, so that for those genuine buyers, they will not be affected. If the trade is put in a very difficult situation, then we do not rule the possibility of taking to the street. Sorry. Actually, we do have a lot of valuable comments, but then because of the time limit, I urge all members to read our submission. We have 2 submissions, and please do read them very carefully. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. KPMG is generally in support of the government's measures to address speculation in the residential property market. However, we feel that with this proposal to increase stamp duty by double, that it's indiscriminate, it's across the board, it takes no regard to whether or not the acquisition is for speculative purposes or for long-term investment or for own use. And we would urge the committee to consider a carve-out exemption for purchases of long-term non-residential property, similar to that for Hong Kong permanent residents purchasing residential property. Thank you.
OK. 下一位，唔該。
All right, next. From the Labour Party, Mr. Keong Kwok Wai. Thank you. In the past few decades, in terms of property prices, they have gone up by such a wide margin that is beyond the affordability of most people in Hong Kong. What's worse is many in the middle class are not eligible for public rental housing, and they will have to put up with the high rents, or they'll have to live in subdivided flats, and their living standards should have improved, but then they've actually come down, and therefore there is not sufficient mobility in the property market, and Hong Kong people are not able to afford the down payment and also the high rents. That's because all along we've been implementing this high land premium policy, and as a result, property prices have been rising all the time, and yet there has been less supply in the public sector, and as a result, Hong Kong people do not have any long-term view about housing development, and as a result, Hong Kong public will suffer. Without a long-term housing policy, Hong Kong people are already having a very difficult time, and with speculation rife in the market, the administration has not dealt with it properly in the past, and of course, in implementing a high land premium policy, property prices will stay at a high level, and that would only benefit the administration because there will be more tax revenue. But then in the past couple of years, the public are finding it difficult to put up with any further, and that's why the administration has been forced to introduce these cooling measures. All right, the administration has been too ambitious and aggressive. And of course, we do believe that the administration has the intention of curbing property prices so that they can stay at a reasonable level that would be affordable to the public. Yes, that's good. But then looking at the 3 cooling measures, my question is, all right, the administration has been making a windfall out of the tax revenue that has been collected, and yet the administration is introducing these cooling measures by collecting more revenue. So while curbing property prices, the administration should also consider making use of the additional tax revenue so that it can offer some rent assistance to those in need. That's why the Labour Party is suggesting that the administration should think along the following lines. That is, there should be rent control, and there should also be rent assistance to those needy families. earlier on, the LTHS Steering Committee also issued a report saying that there are some 67,000 subdivided flats and 170,000 people are living in those flats. And these are people who are in most urgent need. We hope that the administration can implement relevant measures to help these people improve their living environment. The most important thing is their living environment is very dangerous, and there can also be untoward incidents happening. And also the rents of the subdivided flats are even higher than those in regular flats. And if you look at the income to rent ratio is even higher than the regular households. But then the administration has done nothing at all to help them. There is no policy at all to help them. And therefore we urge the administration to introduce this rent assistance to help them. And also the Labour Party is of the view that the administration should increase PRH and also reinstate HOS, and there should also be more supply in the private market. Only then will we be able to help curb property prices. Thank you. Next, Mr. Lawrence Poon from the Hong Kong Institute of Surveyors. Thank you. It's not just the ordinary public. If we were to support or object to government legislation, then we have to know very well the intention of the legislation and what purpose does it serve, and whether or not the legislation is able to achieve that objective. And then we will decide whether or not we support or object to the bill. Well, taking the cooling measures an example, what is the purpose? Is it to curb property prices so that there will not be the bursting of the bubble? Or is it that they'd like to cool or calm property prices, or there'll be a steady decline in property prices? Well, from what we heard from the grapevine, the administration is trying to cut property prices by about 20%. But then, as we have heard, we have more than 1 million homeowners in Hong Kong, and if you reduce property prices by some 20%, it means that their investment their assets will reduce in value by some 20%. So there will be a depreciation of their properties. But then every day we have 100 or so new property buyers, and they have used their lifelong earnings and savings to buy properties. Well, estate value might have dropped by 20%. It doesn't mean that they'll be losing 20% of their money. Let's say if they are paying 30% down payment, and if property prices come down by 30%, then it means that their assets will become zero overnight. So, so long as property prices have come down by 20%, it means that their assets will lose by 2/3. So, in fact, these might have been figures on the book, because for many owners, they only have 20% as the down payment, and then for the rest, they'll have to take it out as loans from their families and relatives. Well, for negative assets, it might be just a notion in the bank's accounts. So you will have to know very well your legislative intent. What does it serve? And also, for people owning their second properties, well, as many have said, well, Hong Kong people would like to have one place or one flat for themselves to live in, and then for another one to collect rent and have additional income. In particular, for the retirees, they will also have to plan for their retirement, and upon retirement, well, people will buy stocks, well, because of the interest. And then for the retirees, well, they might not want to take those risks, and they might think that buying a property and collecting rent might be most convenient because they don't need much knowledge about that, and it's also easy and convenient. And then for people owning 2 flats, one for themselves and one for collecting rents, then if they have to pay this tax or stamp duty, is that reasonable? Because they are not speculators, and they are not those who have pushed up property prices. And also for the 6-month period, for people who have swap property, you would know that it's difficult to do so within 6 months, and can that be extended to 12 months? And also for people who have signed the provisional sale and purchase agreement, all right, if it's uncompleted flats, I think the exemption can be offered upon the occupation of the flat. I think that the administration will have to send out the information more clearly.
The Canadian Chamber of Commerce in Hong Kong.
Honourable members, I am David Nesbitt, Executive Director of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce in Hong Kong. Our membership consists of over 1,200 entrepreneur and corporate members from a diverse background. We thank you and encourage LegCo members to keep working together to amend the proposed legislation which, if left unchanged, will significantly impact the local market and Hong Kong's continued attractiveness as a place to do business. The Canadian Chamber of Commerce in Hong Kong supports the bill's primary objectives to lower speculation and to enable owner occupation. However, the Canadian Chamber and its members, many of whom have had a business presence in Hong Kong for many, many decades, are concerned with the punitive application of the proposed stamp duty in cases where the investment is clearly not speculative in nature. We believe this will harm Hong Kong in the long term and have a negative impact on attracting new businesses here, including many small and medium-sized enterprises, which are the backbone for future business and the economic ties between Hong Kong and Canada. Hong Kong will be less attractive to Canadian companies. The measure, as is, will harm the future prospects of businesses and SME owner-occupiers, along with corporate residents of Hong Kong. The government, and by extension LegCo members, need to understand the consequences to long-term investors and corporate residents of Hong Kong, which will include the following: increased occupancy costs, deterioration of the market perception of Hong Kong as a preferred location for regional headquarters. One significant consequence of the proposed measures is that corporate multinationals and SMEs will choose Singapore over Hong Kong as regional headquarters in the long term. The competitive advantages made by Singapore as an alternative location for regional headquarters over the past 10 years are at least partially due to more affordable occupancy costs. SME and multinational tenants have attempted to manage long-term costs and protect against future occupancy cost inflation by purchasing commercial premises for their own self-use. To address these unintended consequences of the draft amendment, we suggest amending the agreement so that the new stamp duty rates do not apply to non-speculative acquisitions of commercial property for owner-occupiers or long-term business investors. An alternative follows whereby the amount of special stamp duty payable varies depending on the period for which the commercial property has been held, and would not be payable in a situation where commercial property or speculative purposes were appropriate declarations were made. We believe this alternative carve-out would meet the government's aim of combating short-term resale activities in respect of commercial properties by strongly discouraging speculative activity. It will ensure that Hong Kong continues to attract and support the city's ongoing development and allow for owner-occupation among Hong Kong's corporate and small business community. Thank you.
Thank you. 下一位唔該。
Mr. Michael Nut.
Good morning. My name is Michael Nardella. Today I come to you wearing two hats. The first is as a property agent employed at Colliers International, the real estate agency with 500 offices globally and over 200 staff in Hong Kong. I am also here today in my capacity as the chair of the Canadian Chamber's Property Committee. I support the position deposed by CanCham. Today I will firstly discuss the position of a property agent whose clients are SMEs and MNCs. I will then propose a carve-out to the DSD. I will also discuss potential consequences of the current proposed measures on SMEs and MNCs. Lastly, I will briefly note how the DSD could affect Hong Kong's competitive position vis-à-vis Singapore. In terms of my position, I am concerned with the government's proposed DSD and encourage the committee to reconsider the implementation of the proposed measures as they may harm Hong Kong and legitimate investors. I appreciate that the measures in question attempt to mainly dampen speculation. The concern is punitive application of the proposed stamp duty in cases where an investment is clearly not speculative in nature. As the government has opted to manage an overheated property market by tinkering with stamp duty rates, I will suggest an alternative solution along the same lines. I propose a carve-out clause for owner-occupiers and long-term investors, say 24 to 36 months. This carve-out would ensure that the amount of stamp duty payable varies depending on the period for which the commercial property has been held. And the stamp duty would not be payable in a situation where commercial property was acquired for non-speculative purposes when appropriate declarations are made. In terms of consequences, the measures as currently proposed may harm business prospects of long-term investors by increasing costs and reducing profits for MNCs and SME owner-occupiers. Although I have been personally affected by reduced business following the February announcements, I still fully believe that speculation is not in the best long-term interest of Hong Kong. Therefore, I suggest the aforementioned carve-out so that the new stamp duty rates do not apply to non-speculative acquisitions of commercial property for owner-occupiers or long-term investors. The Hong Kong office leasing market is a challenge for MNCs as it has limited supply and is highly competitive amongst tenants. The purchase of a property for self-use is an option to guarantee stability of space and consolidation in the long term. In the last 2 years, major transactions for self-use include 2 banks and 2 international insurers. Under the new measures, they would have paid an additional 700 million Hong Kong dollars in stamp duty. On the SME front, we estimate that rent represents about 30% of SME operating costs. From the market trough of 2009 to the market high of 2013, the office rental market increased by over 50%. Self-use is a method by which SMEs can manage the uncertainty of increased rental prices. Thirdly, thinking in the best interest of Hong Kong, LegCo should be concerned with Singapore's ability to attract the regional headquarters of foreign firms versus Hong Kong's. Committee members, we must ensure that Hong Kong retains its competitive global edge, and a carve-out can help facilitate this. Thank you.
Thank you. 下一位唔該。
Next, we have Professor Chow Kong Wing from Hong Kong Professionals and Senior Executives Association. I'm here representing Hong Kong Professionals and Senior Executive Association. We want to make 4 points concerning the stamp duty bill. There should be a clear policy intent behind the measures, and there should be higher transparency to explain. There should be clearer explanation as to when the new measures will be scrapped, and we should not do anything to reduce transparency in the market. Now DST would apply to non-residential property market. That's really ill-advised. Because relatively speaking, the non-residential property market is a smaller market. If this is applied to the non-residential or commercial property sector, it would impede transparency, and at the same time we are not helping businesses because rental will not come down. And buyers in this market are usually experienced and professional investors. Their capacity to bear risk is higher than ordinary people. And if there's a bubble in the non-residential property market, and when the bubble bursts, the impact on ordinary people will be less severe than that of a residential property market. The new measures would affect people's confidence in Hong Kong's business environment. There are only cons, no pros. So my association proposes that the non-residential markets be carved out. And the new measures will also affect redevelopment projects. The 6-year period allowed is too long from the start to the very completion of redevelopment. We propose that as long as the developer can show clear intention of redevelopment, for example, the building has been demolished pending redevelopment, then the special stamp duty should not be payable. We should encourage more development projects, especially in the urban area, by local developers. The new stamp duty measures should not be applied on the admission of talents and professionals. Mr. Louis Hui, I'm an estate agent. I'm also a property owner. The government has introduced many measures to tackle the property problems. But this is about people's desire to have their own homes. If we have a balance of demand and supply, the problems will go away. After the introducing of the SSD in November 2011, prices have continued to rise. And now the senior government officials want to take further measures to curb speculation and to reduce property prices. So how can you say someone is speculating if he has already held the property for 2 years or more? We have more than 1.1 million property owners. In the 2012 census, some 60% of owners said that they are no longer paying mortgages, and therefore the banks are not required to conduct stress tests in respect of these owner-occupiers. And now we have the DSD. My daughter was born in 2011. I traded up. My property is still subject to this SSD now. If I want to improve the living conditions, what can I do? If I am like the CE, Mr. C.Y. learned, I own properties for both self-occupation or for investment, the cost for me will go up. Is that really fair for small investors like me? The DSD will not just apply to residential properties, but also to non-residential properties. As an international center, this would have a profound impact on our business environment. Some day ago, Mr. C.Y. Leung said that Hong Kong is a place with a simple tax regime, and many companies know that Hong Kong is the springboard to tap into the mainland market. And we want companies to come to Hong Kong to leverage on our advantages. And there's a recent acquisition by a Canadian, Manulife, spending hundreds of millions of dollars to buy their own commercial offices in Kowloon Bay. And if with the new stamp duty measures, who would do this now? So the cooling measures are not going to be helpful. They only affect our competitive edge. So I urge the administration to withdraw this bill. Next we have Mr. Andy Yang. We rarely hear from the administration that they have failed in their work, and now the special duty measures, special stamp duty measures are not working. If you compare what happened after the introduction of the new measures, you see that the prices have not come down. Only the number of transactions has come down. The prices have come down a little bit, but it has very little to do with the special cooling measures. You just look up any textbook on economics. A tax increase is not going to affect the price as such. It just drives the purchasers away. A transaction involves a vendor and a purchaser. If you want to allow more young people to become homeowners, well, this is, of course, understandable, and I welcome this. But with the special cooling measures, what we see in the property market is not opportunities, but a lot of uncertainties. It's more risky for first-time home buyers.
So that would be detrimental to the home buyers because nobody will be able to look into the future thinking that, they will have to hold on to a property. In fact, it's very common for people to change their investment decisions. We will not be able to buy a property because of the SSD, but then you're actually making this investment more risky, and that actually you're actually denying us a chance to buy our own property. So please do scrap the special stamp duty. Next. Chairman. Those who have spoken have already told us this fact. That is, it's not just about this tax, it's not just the SSD that we're discussing. Actually, for all the cooling measures that have been introduced, they have been ineffective. In fact, the fact tells us that they have not been able to curb property prices. What it has managed to do is to cut down on property transactions. That's why you can see so many estate agents out there. They are protesting. Well, during the SARS outbreak, they did not come out to protest. So I wonder if this administration has thought about this. What it is doing is actually damaging Hong Kong's stability and prosperity. Well, just now, as Mr. Yeung said, well, speculators might not be speculators per se, and even if one might have intended to hold on to the property for the long term, he might have to make a decision to sell it. And then there was a couple who think that they would get married, and then they buy a property, but then subsequently the man had an affair, and then they ended up not getting married, but then they will have to sell the flat. But then are they really speculators under your definition? Actually, they've actually had a big fight, and that's why they are not able to get married. I think there are many different scenarios when it comes to buying a property. All right, you're trying to crack down on the speculators, but then they do not have a label on there for it, and therefore property transaction is property transaction. Please do not speculate on people's intention. Please do not second guess their motive. All right, they would be taking up additional risk, and as a result, our market should be allowed to run its normal course. We are not trying to reward them, and actually, we are actually calling them with different labels is not fair. Whoever owns property is just trying to preserve their property and trying to add value to it. And those officials here and also those who have spoken, actually many of you do hold more than one property. Well, Madam Chair, I've also checked your registration in the ICSCO. You do own more than one property. How come the administration is trying to crack down on the ordinary members of the public? Is it that, well, for those of us who would like to buy a second property, you're actually assuming that we are speculators. What kind of logic is that? Well, I think in this day and age, Hong Kong has become a society full of hatred. You're actually phobia against people owning more properties. All right, if real estate agents lose their jobs, then for the pillars in society here, would you be helping them to get or find a job? Well, I think the reality is that whoever is a real estate agent will have to be discriminated against by others. Thank you.
Good morning, members. I'm David Webb, founder of website.com, permanent resident for 22 years in Hong Kong. This bill is running in parallel with another bill on BSD, buyer's stamp duty, following a previously passed bill on SSD, special stamp duty. We're starting to run out of letters here. We've only got another 23 types of stamp duty, and we'll have to think of another way to name them. The government has consistently spun this DSD, double stamp duty, as a demand-side measure. It is nothing of the sort. It indicates quite clearly, as many other measures have, that the government and the financial secretary don't have the slightest grasp of economics. They badly need to establish a council of economic advisers. I'm disappointed that there are only 10 of you here this morning, approximately, and one executive councillor chairing this committee who has a duty to support collective responsibility of government policy. I can hardly believe that she is neutral in this. And I think the other 60-odd members of this council should be taking this matter more seriously, because if you vote for this measure, and if you pass BSD as well, then you're like Turkeys voting for Christmas. You are voting for the gradual destruction of Hong Kong's free market economy, freedom of choice, and that's what many other speakers have spoken about. A lot of the delegates here today are here to ask for special exemptions for their own particular interests, whether it's multinationals or SMEs, or I'm just asking for a carve-out. But there's a bigger principle here, which is that you're interfering with people's free choice, with constitutionally protected rights under the Basic Law 105, which says that people shall have the right to acquire, dispose of and enjoy property, and that includes real estate, all kinds of property, but including real estate. Now, you only interfere with basic law rights, whether it's freedom of speech and religion or transfer of assets, if there is a proper purpose to it, a clear public harm that is trying to be addressed. And certainly DSD doesn't do that, because even if it was targeting speculation, there is no exemption for holding property for 10 years or 100 years, or even 3 years or 24 months. So there's no refund if you do end up holding the property for a long time. And so even if you did put that exemption in, though, so that you could say you were trying to target speculation, what exactly is speculation? And how exactly is it harmful to the economy? The average holding period for stocks in the stock market is probably less than a year, if you think about your own transactions in the stock market. Does that make you all speculators, or are you just investors looking to allocate your capital? So I think there's no proper purpose to this law, and therefore it is unconstitutional. The DSD should be thought of as a brokerage charge. Forget the fact that the buyer normally pays stamp duty. What matters here is that it is basically a 4.5% 4.25% charge on each side of a middle market price. And as the government increases this brokerage charge, it drives people away from the market. And in fact, what you're seeing is a market in corporate transfers developing. That was one I wrote about yesterday on my website. And this will continue. In fact, 2/3 of residential properties above $20 million are already held by companies. So those companies will now be transferred, and the government won't receive any stamp duty at all on those, or only 0.2% if they're Hong Kong incorporated.
Sorry, I think the time is up. Can you wrap up in one?
I will continue in
sentences?
questions.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Jeremy Sheldon, Royal Institution of Chartered Surveyors.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wish to express the concerns raised by members of the RICS in Hong Kong on the potential impact of doubling stamp duty payable on commercial property transactions. The imbalance between the demand and supply of landed properties due to an overall shortage of land has been a root cause of the rising property prices and therefore helped to fuel the surge in speculative activity. The RICS acknowledges the need for measures to dampen speculation, but the proposed double stamp duty will send a negative signal to the international business community that would potentially affect Hong Kong's competitiveness adversely. As a professional body that upholds public interest, the RICS held a conference last month looking at the issue of Hong Kong's competitiveness. There was a conclusive statement to the forum, and let me take this opportunity to read it to you for the committee's consideration. The problem for any world city is that they are deliberately open to global capital and corporates, which makes them vulnerable to distortions. Openness inevitably leads to volatility in property prices and, more generally, congestion and overuse of infrastructure, all consequences of success. The RICS wished to point out that the open economy that Hong Kong provides has been the key to this city's competitiveness and a major reason for attracting local, regional and multinational corporations to want to set up their HQs and businesses here. We see the proposed double stamp duty as a potential impediment to this attraction. In the short term, the government may consider amending the legislation so that the double stamp duty measures, by means of a form of exemption, do not apply to non-speculative acquisitions of commercial property. While the definition of non-speculative may be subject to debate, the RICS believes that a community consensus can be reached, as it is in the best interest for Hong Kong to control short-term speculative activities and support genuine long-term investment and owner-occupation. Further, it is in the best interest of the community that the government set a time frame to review this measure, to gauge its effectiveness and degree of impact on the economy of Hong Kong at large. Ultimately, given the government's aspiration to position Hong Kong as a world city, the stamp duty measures should ultimately be removed when the property price becomes stable and affordable, again within a preordained time frame. In the long term, the principal cause of high property prices is the shortage of land being supplied to the market. The RICS believes there needs to be much more land made available for building in a steady and predictable manner. While the government is looking to do this, as well as promoting the market as a way of running land and its supply, we should not put obstacles such as this in the way. Thank you.
Thank you. 下一位.
Next, Mr. Raymond Ho, Sai Kung District Councillor. Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, my mom retired a couple of years ago. She used to be a janitor at school, and she WhatsApped me. She said that for my retirement fund, I'd like to use my pension to buy a property, and I responded because throughout the past few decades, my mom never talked to me about investing in the property market. And then I told her, you will have to pay more stamp duty. And then she said, well, if I'm interested in a flat in Laguna City, and if it's a parking space, I will be able to get several $1,000s in return as rent, and then all I need to pay is about $0.78 million. And then I was talking to her in WhatsApp, but then I would not be able to explain to her in a few words or sentences why, as an elder who tried to use her own pension to buy a property so that she'd be able to receive or collect some rental income for her retirement life. In fact, the administration would view this as an evil act, and the administration actually had this double standard. Why do I say that this is a double standard? That's because for the DSD, well, the ridiculous outcome is that only high or senior officials will be able to collect rent, and then for the ordinary member of the public, they will not be able to buy flats. Well, for C.Y. Leung, he owns two property in the Peak, and then he actually holds another property or flat in Stanley. He's already living in government house. So if this duty is meant to be a punitive act because buying property is damaging to Hong Kong's interest, then I'd like to call upon C.Y. Leung to sell all his residential properties. But just now, 107 Momentum gathered outside, and some 2,000 protesters joined us, and a few thousand estate agents were there. They would be willing to help C.Y. Leung to sell his property so long as he can give a business card to these agents. They'll be there to help. In fact, many senior officials are actually collecting rents from their properties. Well, Matthew Cheung owns 8 properties himself, and Carrie Lam holds 4 properties, and then Chang Tak Seng holds 3, and then Eddie Hok holds 2. So by the time when you cast your votes on this, and if you agree to this draconian tax, you will have to explain to the public how come you're all very well off now and you are able to collect rents from your properties, and yet you're actually requiring the public to pay double tax or high tax because they'd like to buy properties. Well, I've been a district councillor in Chiang Kwai for 10 years. I can see that many people have saved their lifelong earning, and then they like to buy a small flat, and then they tell me that I'll be moving to an area nearby. Actually, this is an upward mobility. This is an avenue for people to move up the social ladder, and therefore I urge you to scrap all the measures. Next, Mr. Yip from the Labour Party, Mr. Liu Yip, Civic Party. With regard to the double stamp duty to curb property speculation in order to ease the situation in the property market, in principle, the Civic Party supports the legislative intent because with high property prices, that would add to the burden of the public.
High property prices also add to the business costs of SMEs and affecting our business environment as a whole. With the introduction of BSD and SSD, speculative activities, especially those coming from outside Hong Kong, have turned to the non-residential properties, and so offices, car parking spaces, and other non-residential properties have become much more expensive. And therefore, the government would like to introduce measures to restabilize the market, so that Hong Kong people will not be affected by influx of capital from outside Hong Kong and from speculation. But now what the government is trying to do is a bit digressing from the original legislative intent, because for all non-residential property transactions, the double stamp duty will be applicable. The Civic Party will urge the administration to consider the impact on genuine users or people who would like to get reasonable investment through the acquisition of non-residential properties. And many SMEs get their cash flowed from the mortgage of their own occupied properties. The new measures may lead to the cash flow problems of SMEs if the market is frozen. We propose that the administration should introduce a progressive stamp duty regime like Singapore, and that is to say that if the seller has held onto the property for some period, there should be a progressively lower stamp duty payable. We should do whatever we can to safeguard our status as an international financial hub. Next, Mr. Lee Yuk Chung. I'm from Centennial Property Agency. I want to say something on behalf of my fellow estate agents. We don't want to see the property market rising irrationally. We have seen the bubbles in 1998 and at other times. We know that the situation can be very nasty if the bubble bursts, and many people back then held negative assets, negative equity assets. Many people committed suicide because of financial difficulties. So we propose measures to stabilize the market. However, are these measures introduced by the current administration and the previous administration effective? Well, I think people like me have a lot of reservations. I don't need to repeat the points made by other deputations. I just want to tell you the problem faced by estate agents. According to the Estate Agents Authority, we have some 40,000 licensed estate agents. Those who depend on this for a living numbered about 30,000. If we look at the monthly transaction numbers from 6,000 to 3,000 something, so there's only one transaction for every 8 agents. But you know the distribution is uneven. Some would be able to close a few transactions, and many others cannot even get one. If this continues, we are going to see a laying off very soon. And at least we're talking about 10 million families will be affected. They will be deprived of their livelihood. And other related sectors will be affected. For example, lawyers' firms and so on and so forth. Maybe they don't need to close down, but there's some likelihood that they may have to lay off some of their staff. And also, we are going to see impact felt by the construction sector, the property movers, and so on and so forth. If we can really reduce property prices, then maybe it's a sacrifice that we're willing to pay. But now, with the new measures introduced, we are going to see a small reduction. In Kingswood Villa, Tin Shui Wai, the prices have actually gone up. And for White Farmers, secondary HOS market is also going in the opposite direction. So speculators are driven away already, but the market is also stifled. I propose the shelving of this new bill on stamp duty. And when new measures are introduced in the future, please listen more to practitioners. We are no experts in all these related fields, but we come into contact with buyers very closely. We understand the mentality of vendors and purchasers in the property market. We'll be able to provide information and brief the administration about the real situation in the market. Next, Dr. Wong Fuk Yi, Hong Kong Christian Council. Thank you, Madam Chair, and I thank members who are staying to listen to us. I represent Hong Kong Christian Council, but I'm not just representing our churches, but also some of the charitable organizations in our council. This bill is supposedly about helping local genuine home buyers and dampen speculation. It's not about raising revenue. And therefore, there's some exemption granted to the permanent residents of Hong Kong. Charitable organizations in Hong Kong are now the target of the new measures. Under the IRO Section 88, we are tax exempt. Charitable organizations are tax exempt. But the charitable organizations also need to buy properties for quarters and for other charitable purposes. We are not saying that we should pay no stamp duty, but we are saying that we should be treated like Hong Kong permanent residents, and that is the buyer's stamp duty should not be applied to charitable organizations, because if they have to pay the additional stamp duty, resources for charitable purpose will be reduced. And this will give Hong Kong people the impression that these charitable organizations are also speculators. Charitable organizations have limited means. They are no speculators. They are not going to add to the speculation. They buy properties for their own use. But now the bill, the measures, gives the people that this is across the board, is unpersuaded by the public opinion. This can be done. I think an exemption can be granted easily for charitable organizations because they are recognized under Section 88 of the Inland Revenue Ordinance. I hope the administration and members here will be practicable and do something to accommodate their needs. Paragraph 18 of the paper issue on the 6th of May, it says that exemption will be considered for non-profit organizations. I hope the administration and the council would carefully consider our request. We are willing to be involved in an ongoing dialogue with members. Next, oh no, we don't have any more. All deputations have spoken. So now we are going to give the floor to the administration for some response, and then the floor will be open for members to raise questions. Some 6 members, or 5, Mr. Lam Tai Fai, Mr. Lawrence Leung, Mr. Abraham Shet, Mr. Wong Ting Kwong, Ms. Ann Jiang, Mr. Tony Che, are the 5 who want to raise questions. So over to you, Deputy Secretary. How much time do I have? Well, you have time. You can respond to the deputations now. Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'd like to thank the members who are here and the deputations who have come. Through the Secretariat, we have received over 30 submissions, written submissions, and we are also here, and some 27 individuals and organizations have offered their comments today. I've listened very carefully to all of you, and I've read your submissions as well. Quite a few of you, or individuals and organizations, have referred to the measures introduced by the administration and the policy intent behind them. and quite some of them agree that the government should do something to deal with the heated property market so as to prevent the crisis arising from a bubble. So I think this point is noteworthy, and also quite a few of the deputations have to look at this AVD and the doubled stamp duty rates proposed in the bill, and they have expressed their concern about the measures. Maybe here I can provide a brief response, a broad response, by taking on board the views expressed. I think there are three major points expressed by the deputations. First, with regard to the proposed increase of AVD rates, and the fact that this time non-residential properties will also be covered by the new rates. Last time, at the last Bills Committee, similar concerns were expressed by members, and they asked whether we are going to affect the acquisition of non-residential properties for business purposes, and whether this would affect the business environment or add to the operational costs of businesses in Hong Kong. With regard to this point, let me explain the policy intent and the rationale behind these proposed measures. There are 3 points that I want to make. Many members here are also on the other Bills Committee with regard to the BSD and the SSD. In November last year, we launched the special cooling measures, and the effects are beginning to be felt in the market. We have seen a significant reduction in the number of transactions. In November, December 2012, we have seen some cooling off of the residential property market. But in early 2013, we began to realize that, well, while the supply was low, the interest rate was ultra low, and capital inflow increase in pace and extent. So we started to pay attention to also the non-residential market property, and we began to see the non-residential market starting to heat up. And we want to safeguard the interests of Hong Kong local permanent residents, especially those who would like to buy their own homes for the first time. And that's for the residential market. For the non-residential market, we have been paying close attention to that as well. In 2012, as a whole, in the whole year, in respect of retail premises, or even factory buildings, parking spaces, offices, the volume of transactions increased to a great extent. In 2012, if you compare 2012 with 2011, the number of transactions increased by more than 20%, and in terms of prices for these non-residential properties in the 3 categories, the increase ranged from 24 to 46% over a year ago. And there are different ways to analyze this and to explain this.
So we have to face up to this. Well, while the residential property market has become overheated, we can also see that it is actually spreading to the non-residential market. Just now, I can still remember some deputations also expressed their concerns in this regard. Well, as we can see, that there is exuberance in the market in those in both residential and non-residential market. We have to adhere to the principle, that is, we have to protect the rights of Hong Kong people buying their property. That's why when we introduced this AVD measure in early 2013, the objective is that we try to be more consistent when it comes to AVD, and also there would also be a measure that would yield immediate effect, so that in both residential and non-residential property market, we'd like to cool off the market. Indeed, the AVD ad valorem duty regime has always covered both residential and non-residential properties all along. Both markets would be targeted under the AVD regime. Well, some deputations have said that while they agree with the overriding principle and legislative intent, they have also said that maybe we should be more focused when it comes to the residential market. For those that are not for self-use, if they are speculative, short-term transaction, or I've also heard views in this regard, and there have also been some well-intended suggestions. I think we should also look into it. A few deputations have also said how we should define speculation and how we should target those short-term speculative activities and those who are for long-term holding. Indeed, in the residential property market, when people make a decision to buy properties, yes, there might be different considerations. That's why I hope that sorry, yes, Mr. Sheikh, I've heard the views of many deputations, but then the administration is still turning on the tape recorder. Time and again, it's been repeating what is said in the past, but then can they respond to the views expressed by the 27 deputations instead of just repeating what they have said in the past? They have told us time and again very much the same thing. All right, in your response, can you respond directly to some of the requests made by the deputation? Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, Mr. Sheikh, I'm actually responding to their remarks, and there are also some concrete views and suggestions. We'll actually be responding to them one by one. We'll be doing so both verbally and in writing. So I'd like to bring up my third point. All right. For those properties that are for self-use and so on, can we make a distinction between the two different types of use? Well, that's a point that we will have to think about. And also, some deputations have said that with a series of measures being rolled out by the administration, will the overall development of the property market be adversely affected? And also, for the practitioners in the property market, will their livelihood or their activities be affected? Well, I'd like to specifically point out that with this series of measures being introduced, well, that's introduced in an exceptional period. That's why these are exceptional or extraordinary measures. We do understand that with these measures rolled out, there might be some inconvenience and also some short-term pain experienced by those in the sector. Well, if they are still leading us up the garden path, then it's a disrespect for the deputations here. I noticed that she has only spoken for 5 minutes. Please finish in a minute. It's not about the time that she has spent. It's about the quality of her speech. All right, for these exceptional measures, we fully understand that well, for people in the sector, there might be some short-term pain and also some inconvenience. But then if the administration has not taken these measures promptly in order to cool the property market, then in the future, where there are major volatility experienced in the market, then the blow dealt to the economy and Hong Kong as a whole will be even greater. That's why in this exercise, we have adopted this negative vetting approach, and we hope that the bill can be passed with member support. We hope that with this, we can have a more flexible mechanism in place indeed, day in, day out, and every month we are monitoring the property market closely, and if we think that there is a need for us to make adjustments, then we can make use of this mechanism under the bill so that the relevant measures and the tax rate could also be adjusted accordingly. Finally, as the Secretary for Transport and Housing said at another Bills Committee meeting, he said that in rolling out these demand-side management measures, the administration is also looking at our own housing policy. It's still very much a supply-led approach, because we understand that the root of the problem is supply. That's why, in terms of supply, while the supply is still tight, we believe that there is a need for us to do this at this very extraordinary time. So that's my overall response, and then we will be responding to the points made by deputations one by one in writing. Okay, Mr. Lam Tai Fai, 4 minutes each. Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I have to thank all the deputations and individuals who are here today. Well, Madam Chair, I'm sure we all agree that for the estate agents, they're actually the thermometer in the property market because they can feel the pulse of the market, and they know what's happening on the ground. And therefore, I hope that the administration will listen to them carefully, and the administration must respect their views. Please do not pretend that you're listening or you're hearing without listening. If the administration just stick to its own so-called experts, and then it will just come up with something behind closed doors, then what I can tell you is that you will not be able to resolve the housing problem that we have right now, and that will also give rise to many other problems, and there would also be negative impact for the cooling measures that have been introduced. That has not just damage the free economy in Hong Kong and also the mode of commercial operations. And indeed, you have adopted this broad brush approach affecting both speculators and non-speculators. These are absurd measures, and you have not been able to see the upside, and you've already experienced its downside. All right, estate agents are actually worse off than sex workers. I don't know whether or not this represents all the estate agents, but then it shows that he is of the view that estate agents are really very helpless, and they're actually having a very, very difficult time. And just now, Mr. Ng Kin Wah also said that, all right, senior officials have held many properties. It's not anything wrong, but then they simply do not know the suffering of the ordinary public. I fully agree with Poon Wing Cheung. That is the representative from the Institute of Surveyors. Well, the legislative intent is the most important thing. All right, I fully remember what you said when you introduced the bill. You said that you're trying to help the needy Hong Kong permanent residents so that they can have priority in buying flats. But then after they have been rolled out, we think that is not very effective. But then for those waiting for PRH, has it been faster? Well, in fact, with the measures, the facts speak for themselves. It has not been helpful at all. In fact, the property market has become stagnant, and there is no activity at all. So how can you help people buy flats if this is the case? So I'd like the administration to come up with scientific data to show that actually more people are able to buy their flats. Is it that permanent residents have been able to buy their flats more easily? In fact, it shows that you're not able to get land supply, and you've not been able to resolve the supply problem. The administration says that is top priority in resolving the housing problem, but then you're trying to curb supply. You're trying to curb demand, but then the root of the problem is supply. You should have increased supply, but then you're saying that there are fewer transactions and property prices have come down. Let's not forget that the legislative intent was to help permanent residents to buy their own flats. But then what if the property market has died? Does that mean that people will be able to buy flats? Mr. Lam, you will have to allow the officials to respond. Well, my question is, can the administration consider this? After listening to the deputations today, please do it before it's too late. Please scrap the measures. Thank you. Permanent Secretary? Thank you, Mr. Lam, for your view. I'd like to emphasize that, the legislative intent of this bill is very clear. We'd like to give priority to Hong Kong permanent residents buying their own homes, and therefore in response to your remarks and also the remarks made by the deputations just now, well, in increasing the AVD, actually for first-time home buyers and also for those who have bought their flats before, but then they are no longer holding any flats. In fact, they will enjoy this exemption. I have to clarify this because just now individuals have said that they'd like the administration to offer exemption. In fact, it's not just for the first-time home buyers. In fact, for those who do not hold any property right now, the tax rate will be the same as in the past. That is from $100 to 4.25%. Thank you. Next, Madam Chair, I'd like to declare interest. I hold both residential and non-residential properties. Next, Andrew Leung. Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, this bill is explained by the FSTB is not very fair because most of the policies have been introduced by the THB. What we have heard the views, and we can see that overwhelming majority of the deputations, none of them is in favor. Actually, even for those who are in support, actually they also have some reservation. And even for the Civic Party, if you listen to them carefully, they are contradicting themselves if you listen to what they said in the first part and second part of their speech. Well, I've moved a motion asking the administration to repeal it or to withdraw it. They will have to think twice before they introduce this again. All right, the deputations have come here early in the morning, and I'd like to thank them, and they all support my conclusion, that is the bill should be scrapped. All right, with regard to residential and commercial buildings, all right, all of them will be covered by one single bill, and this will be this will have negative impact on the business environment in Hong Kong. But then the administration is saying that, well, nothing can be done about it. It will have to do it. All right, how come for non-residential properties, when they are used by the owners, why can't they be exempted? How come for residential flats, if they are for self-use, then they can be exempted? And also for the SMEs, after they have bought the property, in fact, they would be hiring people. All right, they are not just left idling. And there is no distinction between investment and speculation. All right, we have David Webb, who's here. He's an expert in investment. In fact, he has already said that, well, if you do it by way of transacting in companies, all right, for those who are not holding the properties in the name of a company, then they will have to pay the tax. But then for those doing so in the name of companies, well, he has said that for properties worth more than $20 million, usually they would be transacted in the name of companies. Well, we also have bureau directors who would use companies to buy properties and buy things. All right, he doesn't have to pay any tax at all. So there is. So my question is not for the administration, but for the deputations. How do you define commercial buildings for self-use? Is there a way that you can tell whether or not it's for self-use? For example, if the administration says that it's owned or held by a company, then how can I tell? All right, if they can tell us, then that would be helpful. All right, who would like to respond to the question raised by Mr. Andrew Leung? How do you define self-use or non-residential property?
David.
Well, if you're going to introduce exemptions like that, I mean, obviously you could look at business registrations. If a business buys an office and moves into it, I don't think you could really call them a speculator because they've got moving in costs, fitting out costs. They're not really going to be dumping it in a short-term time frame. So you could at least exempt anyone with a business registration occupying their own property and refund their stamp duty the moment they move in, if there's some transition period. That would be a simple measure.
Thank you. Zhou Gaosao.
Professor Chow, the speaker's not coming through. The speaker's not coming through. Well, even if there's a bubble in the non-residential market, it's not going to affect livelihood. There's no need to differentiate between the self-use and speculation in that market. Mr. Poon from the Hong Kong Institute of Surveyors. Well, it's easy. You ask for declaration. If it's not for self-use, it's for rent, then you can look at the tenancy agreement. Of course, even if there's no tenancy agreement, it may not be for self-use, but I think you can make it a criminal offense to provide false information. They wouldn't want to face this risk. Mr. Lee. Well, in the non-residential market, that's commercial. You are talking about commercial behavior. There's no need to differentiate between speculation and self-use. If I open an office and share it with another company, is that speculation or self-use? I just don't understand why the government would have to do something about that market. Mr. Abraham Shek, I declare my interest that I hold properties and I represent the real property sector. I would like to thank all the 27 deputations. Actually, what you have said have been heard by the administration in the past. From us, we have been talking about the same thing for the past 2 years. I think we also have academics who are willing to come out and tell the administration why this is really not feasible. And I believe the 27 deputations here are supported by the many people. But I can tell you that they are not willing to listen to you, judging from the replies that we have heard. Since 2010, November 2010, we have been more or less repeating the same points. They want to allow Hong Kong permanent residents to buy their homes. Well, that's a very laudable aim. But if you want to use a company to buy your own homes, and you are a permanent resident, you have to pay additional stamp duty, and you cannot really take out a good mortgage. And I think Mr. Wong puts it right. They sell the land at high premium, and if it's just like selling flour at high price, and you want the bread to be cheap. And we have someone from the Lion Rock Institute, Mr. Wong. And if you are friends, your estate agents' friends, or want to take to the street, I'm more than willing to join you. It's not a sectorial matter, like Mr. Webb says. It's about Hong Kong's economic system, our development market. And we've been talking about Article 105 of the Basic Law and people's right to their properties. But the government is trying to resort to the double talk to explain it away. Please tell them how many people will lose their jobs. More than 10,000 estate agents will lose their jobs, and 2,000 agencies will also be closed down. They're only going to build 7,900 public rental housing units in the coming year, and the waiting list has 210,000 waiting list applicants. So they just want to cover up their failure through special anti-property transaction measures. All these special measures would not work. And as I've said, we have seen the number of transactions coming down all the way from 156,000 in 2010 to 91,000 in 2012, a drop of 40% in 2 years. At the same time, property prices went up by 35% because you are allowed to buy, but when you sell, you are penalized. So they regard this as a failure, and whether the number of transactions goes up or down, they have their own way of interpreting the figures. I hope those in the public gallery will remain silent while the meeting is in progress. Mr. Wong Ting Kwong, I have to declare my interest as a property owner, both residential and non-residential. Thank you for coming so early in the day to tell us your views. It seems that many of the deputations agree with the legislative intent of the bill, but they have also pointed out the shortcomings of the special cooling off measures. And I want to direct this to the administration. One important aim behind this is to allow Hong Kong people to buy properties in Hong Kong. And by Hong Kong people, I'm talking about both residents, natural persons, and non-natural persons, corporate cities, legal persons. If a company is formed by Hong Kong people only, a body corporate is formed by Hong Kong residents only, is a legal person, a Hong Kong legal person. And the properties are held by both body corporates or legal persons and natural persons in Hong Kong. And now with the introduction of the special stamp duty, double stamp duty, you are denied half of that group of property owners to equal treatment. So I would like to listen from the administration and the deputations as regards why we should make that distinction between natural persons and legal persons. Deputy Secretary, the legislative intent is clear. We want to afford priority to local permanent residents in acquiring properties. The stamp duty payable by them will remain unchanged under the new bill. As for BSD, there's a difference between natural persons and body corporates. Body corporates or companies will not be exempt from the BSD. Under this ad valorem stamp duty regime, is a consistent arrangement. If a Hong Kong permanent resident doesn't hold any property, but he may be a shareholder of a company which owns property, the property is owned by the company. The exemption for the AVD will apply to that person, even though he's a shareholder of a company which owns properties. So we make a clear distinction between the companies and natural persons. I think you are switching the concepts to mislead us. If we're talking about Hong Kong permanent residents being shareholders of a company, and if he doesn't own any property personally, then I can understand why the exemption applies. But if I'm a business starter, I start a company, a business, and I want to acquire an office, a shop for my business, then I have to pay the DSD, a higher stamp duty. So do you want to encourage new businesses, business startups by Hong Kong people. So can you provide exemption for business startups, new businesses established by Hong Kong permanent residents for the very first time? The legislative intent is to afford priority to Hong Kong permanent residents, i.e. natural persons, in acquiring the properties. If it's a business, even though it's established by Hong Kong permanent residents for the very first time, the exemption doesn't apply. Ms. N. Jiang, government policy should not be introduced in a haste or across the board or in a sweeping manner, because if you do this, you may affect normal business activities, and also you affect people who rely on such business activities for a living. The first one to bear the brunt will be the intermediaries, the estate agents. According to statistics, we have 36,410 registered estate agents. Not all of them working full-time. Some of them are part-time, the estate agents, trying to supplement the main source of income. And the other professionals who will be affected, lawyers and so on. I understand that with the new cooling off measures, that they are affected to varying degrees. And I'm also mindful of the impact to be felt by other people, such as those selling the furniture and those who are doing renovations. So hundreds of thousands of families will be affected directly or indirectly. Well, I can see the good intention, but whatever you want to achieve, you should not do it in a hasty manner. And also, we have to clarify the objective, the aim of the measures. It's stated by the administration that you want to help those families who want to buy their own homes, and therefore you introduce the special stamp duty. The response was not very negative back at that time, because you wanted to target speculation, not target genuine home buyers. You want to tackle the short-term flipping of residential properties. But now you want to introduce more special stamp duty measures, and people's reaction are more negative. So you have to consider a few things here. For example, for the DSD, maybe more exemptions should be provided. Small investors may want to buy an office or parking space for rental income. The buyer may be a senior citizen. Well, we have to consider their situation. And now you also want to target investors, local and overseas investors who want to buy office space will be affected. You are not in this line of business, so you may not know the real situation. If I owned a shop and the shop next to mine can fetch $100,000, then I would rather let my shop to another operator instead of using it myself. What's wrong with that? I think the administration should have more discussions, sessions with the relevant stakeholders, the estate agents, and related trades and professionals. Listen to them more carefully. I hope this bills can be withdrawn. Please reconsider and present another one later.
Next, Tony Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I'd like to thank the deputations who are here for their comments. Have you declared interest? Somebody else? Yes. Well, I share many of your comments. I also urge the administration to consider them very carefully. I'd like to make a few points. Just now, I heard the administration say, and it has said in the past, that the cooling measures were aimed at achieving certain objectives. But then the more I heard, the more I'm confused. They said that with regard to the property market for short-term speculative activities, they'd like to curb those activities so that there can be some management measures and there can also be more healthy development. But then what's meant by short-term? If the administration has already defined what's meant by short-term, then that's very clear. But then for those that are doing so for investment or for non-short-term holding, how come they're also targeted? How come you've actually misfired your shots at them? How come we are sending out the wrong message? Well, in the past, we would view this as normal business activities. That's why many deputations have said that the administration should think about this in terms of or in the form of exemptions. Also, with regard to the AVD, the administration has actually done it in the other way round. It's not trying to help the weak by combating the stronger ones. In fact, well, the AVD will be targeting the companies, but then actually, how can you make use of companies to hold properties? In fact, many members of the public do not know this, and the administration says that it would take care of the permanent residents, in particular those from the lower rung of society, and they want to buy their own flats. But then the more they say, the more ambiguous the picture is. And also for Hong Kong people trying to switch property, well, I hope that the administration would understand this. That is, many people would like to move up the ladder by switching to larger flats. But then apparently you're actually giving them 6 months period in making the decision. So you're actually forcing them to sell their flats very promptly in order to get the exemption from the AVD. All right, they will have to sell their property within 6 months. Would that be a long enough period? And also, if you are buying uncompleted flats, then it's not possible. That's why I hope that the administration will consider this seriously. That is, some adjustments will have to be made in submitting the bill to this council. If you do not make any adjustments, you will not get the support of the community at large, and it would also be very difficult for you to have this bill passed in this council. Thank you. Any response from the administration? If you permit me, then I'd like to respond to the remarks made by Tony Chair and Ann Chiang. I'd like to briefly respond to those remarks first. First of all, Ms. Chiang said that well, the original intention of the policy is when we try to do this, we also have to listen to views to see how they can be improved. Well, indeed, through the Bills Committee and today's hearing, and also there will be further meetings by the Bills Committee, that's also a learning process. So how do we listen to the comments and make amendments or adjustments to that? Then of course we will have to listen to the feedback from the community. On the other hand, we also have to strike a balance. If we were to make the so-called improvements by modifying our measures, what's the message to be sent out to the market? We have to strike a balance between all these. That's why we will have to keep a close eye on the developments. And also at the hearing today, we have heard many views, and also we have actually been talking to some of the chambers of commerce and also the groups here. Actually, when we introduced the first bill, actually we also cherish the opportunities to talk to them. That's why we are more than happy to maintain this dialogue with the deputations and the organizations so that we can be all ears to their views. And if there is any feedback or any comments, then we'll be more than happy to discuss them with this Bills Committee. Today, we may not have been able to respond to all the comments, but then as usual, we'll be giving or setting out all our response in a detailed document. We'll consider all their views very carefully, and then we will respond later. As to the point made by Mr. Tony Chair about the policy objective, whether or not there are areas that are not very clear. In fact, I'd like to say that they are not unclear at all, including the SSD, the BSD, and also the bill under scrutiny today, that's the AVD. In fact, we are actually targeting at different areas. Well, for the BSD, we are actually targeting the short-term speculative activity. As for the the SSD is targeting that, and then for BSD, we are actually looking at those who have been involved in large number of transactions resulting in the exuberance in the market. Well, we can see that initially there has been easing off in the market, but then once again there is a return of the exuberance shortly after the introduction of the measures. That's why we believe that there is a need for us to step up our demand-side management measures, and the message should also be sent out. And we are actually targeting the areas in a very focused manner. Yes, the Bills Committee is only looking at the bill and also the text of the bill, but then there is a need for us to reiterate our policy objective. Well, you have to wait for your second round. Just one word. Well, the DAB welcomes Ms. Chen, who promised that she would think hard about the remarks made by the deputations. Yes, Mr. Sheikh. Well, Deputy Secretary, she said that she already considered the views very carefully. All right, you are also the chairperson of the last Bills Committee. I think she has been very selective in her remarks. In fact, many deputations have given many views, and some 90% were not taken on board by the administration. They have yet to respond to those remarks. Actually, by saying that she has already heard all the views, she is not really very truthful. Yes, Mr. Sin Chong Kai, you're speaking for the first time. Well, Madam Chair, some of the initial thinking might not have been very mature, but then for non-residential properties, you're going to impose this high tax rate. Is there sufficient evidence to prove that there is a need for us to do this? Of course, if there is a lot of speculation in the market, and apparently we've been told that you will have to target the residential market if you want to curb speculation, but then subsequently we've been told that the activity has spread to the non-residential market. But then do you have strong indication to show that the non-residential property market is already subject to serious speculation, and as a result you will have to do something about it? If there is no sufficient evidence to prove that this is the case, then is there any justification for the administration to increase the AVD so substantially, or else you'll be criticized for affecting the free market and dampening competition in the market? And also, is 6 months enough for people to sell their property? Should it be extended to 12 months or even 18 months? Well, is there any room to maneuver? So my question is, has the administration got any evidence to show that in the non-residential property market speculation is rife, and as a result, if the administration does not introduce these measures, then Hong Kong's long-term interests could be affected? But then if you increase the tax rate so substantially, then that would also affect Hong Kong's long-term interests. So can you explain a bit further? Yes, Deputy Secretary, Mr. Sin raised two questions. Well, for the non-residential property market, I've already shared some figures. For in 2012, in the non-residential property market, there are several aspects: retail shops, office accommodation, and also flatted industrial buildings. Well, in these few respects, both in terms of the number of transactions and also in terms of prices, when compared to 2011, there was a sharp increase in price. And if you look at the percentage, actually, if you look at the number of transactions for retail shops and also for flatted industrial buildings, the number of transactions went up by more than 20%. And then for property prices, well, in these three areas, there was an increase by over 20 to 46%. So if you look at the property prices, well, relatively speaking, when compared to 2009, this is a relatively recent period, and the price level also went up by 150 to 200%. When we responded to the remarks made by members last time, that is for non-residential market, are we able to be more focused on the short-term speculation so that additional measures can be introduced so that for those that are used for for self-use, they do not need such measures. But then, as we have seen in the property market, there is no evidence to show that with regard to the overall exuberance in the market, it's just purely from short-term speculation. That's why when the administration introduces any measure, we will have to take care of the immediate effect. We also have to have justifications for doing anything or not doing anything. If there is no specific evidence to show that short-term speculation has been the root of the problem, then we will have to be very careful. Should we only be targeting the short-term speculation like what we have done in the residential market, for example, by introducing the SSD, and also for residential properties, all right, for people selling and for people buying a new flat and then selling their existing flat. Well, we are targeting the Hong Kong permanent residents if they are buying flats for the first time or if they do not hold any properties at all. But then there are many people who have to change flats, and this 6-month period has been introduced after balancing the needs. On the one hand, they will have to take care of their financial position and also the availability of flats in the market. And if the period is too long, then with regard to the effectiveness of the measure, that would also be affected. In the end, to answer Mr. Sin's question on this particular point, we are trying is a balancing act. Under the present circumstances, we believe that the 6-month period is an appropriate and balanced approach. Next, James Tian. Madam Chair, we have had many meetings already, and every time I have to declare interest in the development sector. I've also bought government sites, and of course, in buying government land, we do not have to pay any stamp duty, but then for other transactions, I have to pay stamp duty too. And then on this issue, apparently the administration is playing its old tape. All right, every time when it answers questions, it would just be giving the same answer, and the Liberal Party would also like to play its old tape. That is, we are against the entire bill, and as we have said repeatedly, we'll be moving amendments, and if other members move amendments, we'll support them. That is, there should be exemption for companies, whether it's residential or non-residential properties, they should be exempted, and we'll be supporting any sunset clause. And if these two amendments are voted down, then I will be voting against the entire bill. And the justifications are, as I repeat them here, all right, the government's policy objective is to curb property prices so that prices can come down a little bit. But then have you been able to achieve that objective? Or taking the $10 million worth properties, well, in the past ABD was set at 4.25%, and people will have to pay about $10 million. All right, now property prices have come down. Let's say if it costs some $9.7, $9.8 million, but then you're actually charging them some $850,000. Actually, it'll be even more costly when compared to the past. So are you able to cut property prices? You're actually looking at the price, all right. They'll say that the shop is now sold at $10 million, and now it used to sell at $10 million, and now it has come down to $9.8 million. But then has the cost been cut? And also for stamp duty, for the $850,000 you have to pay as stamp duty, you won't be able to take out any loans from the banks. So for those in the business sector, I don't think you've been able to cut property prices. I don't think you've been able to help them. So these are the problems that have come up, and yet the administration is still telling us that it will continue to listen, it will continue to consult.
Now we want you to learn from Singapore. Let's have a 3-year sunset clause. You may think that 3 years too long. Some other members have proposed 1.5 years. And there's a recent news story, Manulife, a purchase of property worth $400 $4 billion, and they have to pay additionally $100 million in stamp duty. And the administration just said poor timing. Other governments will try to raise revenue if they are in a deficit. But now it's not for the purpose of raising revenue. It's for the curbing property prices. But so you're not achieving your aims in any of the two points, any of the two stated objectives. We're going to vote against the bill. Deputy Secretary, let me say something about the proposal about having a sunset clause. As the Secretary for Transport and Housing said on another occasion, if we want to impose a deadline, a sunset clause, the government is of the view that this is not realistic because we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know when the government should withdraw such special measures. And in his speech, the Secretary for Transport and Housing has already promised that after a year of the passage of the bill, the entire arrangement will be subject to a review. Additionally, we are also paying attention to the property market development. Well, when did you start to count the 1 year before you have the review? As indicated by the Secretary in his speech, after the enactment of the bill, there will be a review in a year's time. Once again, I'd like to thank the deputations for spending time with us and expressing your views. I'm also the chairman of the other Bills Committee on a similar bill. So the first measure was set to be for the purpose of dampening speculation. The community responded quite positively, and now you introduce other measures and asking the non-Hong Kong residents to pay a higher cost in acquiring properties. That's acceptable, but companies formed by Hong Kong residents are not exempted. I know the Secretary is considering ways to accommodate wishes that Hong Kong companies should also be exempted. And now this time, the special stamp duties would apply to non-residential properties. And now this time, the reaction is much stronger because we have heard from the practitioners and the other organizations. The practitioners have been severely affected because of the number of transactions has dropped significantly. Property prices are not coming down because the lack of supply, the ultra low interest rate. So the only effect of the SSD is to, at best, stabilize property prices, but the number of transactions has dropped very sharply. So I hope, Deputy Secretary, you can take back our views and tell the Secretary that he should carefully consider the views from the community and from the stakeholders, because this time even commercial property buyers are not going to be exempted. The business sector has reacted quite negatively, and the members are also very negative about this. So please faithfully convey our views, and please tell the Secretary this. I'm going to tell the Secretary about our position carefully, and please proceed with caution. And you should consider some of the suggestions made by the deputations. We are talking about AVD, and you want to make sure that Hong Kong permanent residents will be able to get priority in meeting their needs to buy their own flats. But companies also have their needs. Hong Kong companies also need to buy their own office. And also for those who are trading up, they are selling and then buying, you should allow more than 6 months. Because they may be forced to sell within the 6-month period just to avoid the higher stamp duty, and they may have to sell at a lower price. And also, maybe you should consider giving exemption to those who have not owned any property in the past 3 years. At least these people might have owned a property and they might have already sold it, and they are now renting. And they may want to buy again. We should take their interests into account. So I think today we have heard very clearly that the Secretary should be asked to reconsider the bill. I think the bill getting passed in its original form is not very likely now. Let's wait until we get some response from the administration in due course. And we now proceed to the second round. We've only got limited time, so each member will be given just 1 minute. You got 4 minutes in the last round. Mr. Lam Tai Fai. All right, then I want to raise three questions. I want to get statistics from the administration to justify that these special measures, special stamp duty rates can help the Hong Kong permanent residents buy their own homes. Second, please assess the impact on different trades, estate agents, furniture companies, cancelling companies, movers, and what kind of impact they would suffer in terms of business volumes and employment. And also, Mr. Stanley Wong said the government may roll out more measures to cut the property prices by 20%. Is this what the administration has in mind? Let's have all the questions raised first. Mr. Abraham Shat, to answer Mr. Lam Tai Fai. First question is an easy question to answer. In November 2010, with the introduction of SSD, the number of transactions has dropped by 40%. Prices have gone up by 35%. In that 2-year period, with 180,000 transactions, only 1,800 were subject to SSD. So SSD has proved to be effective. And we were told back then that the special measures were for the special time, special situation. And now they have a more variety of stamp duties. So the measures are all proven wrong. They are total failure. You are going to respond to Mr. Lam's question in a moment, I suppose. Mr. Sin Chung Kai, I also want to get some figures. Please give us the figures according to the categories: residential, non-residential, flatted, factory space, transaction numbers, and prices, and so on. My question is whether we need to do something about non-residential properties. As for those who trade up, the grace period allowed should be lengthened. You are actually talking about historical figures although the property as a whole is rising, and in the future we're going to see the U.S. government withdrawing from the market, and the imposition of a luxury tax by the mainland, prices of shops in Hong Kong would come down. So instead of a rising trend, we are going to see an opposite trend in the future. So we should impose a time limit on those measures to reduce the negative impact. Mr. James Dean, is this bill going to be passed? Well, we have to say, and I would like to agree with you, that it's not likely to be passed in its original bill. Unlike the other bill in the Financial Affairs panel, when we discussed another bill, we had a very good discussion. But after some persuasions, members changed their position and supported the bill. Mr. Andrew Leung, according to the administration, this is also about preventing volatilities when capital flows out of Hong Kong. Well, we in the BAP was the first one to propose the amendments. If they don't change anything in the bill, I don't think we will allow the bill to be passed. We are not just here to express our views. Last time we asked you to withdraw the bill. And now I think the deputations are asking the same. If you insist of making no change, it's not going to be passed. All right, this is already the third meeting we are on this, and we are actually saying all the same thing all the time. Mr. Wong Ting Kwong, all right, you have expressed your position. You are from DAB, so am I. DAB always supports the government to govern in accordance with our law, but there are good laws and there are bad laws. If you want to have the bill passed in its original form, as the chairperson has said, it's not going to happen. I'm not trying to threaten the administration. I'm just stating the obvious. All right, so any response, Deputy Secretary? I'm going to extend the meeting a little bit for your response. Let me reiterate. Well, you have many of you have commented on the non-residential aspects. There are quite a few other aspects in the bill. We want to introduce some new measures under the bill for demand-side management, and we're also proposing to provide exemption for Hong Kong residents who are not holding any property now, although they might own property in the past. The exemption will still apply. So the policy of intent in this regard is clear. As for non-residential properties, we're going to collect the stamp duty, advance the collection of stamp duty from the time of conveyance to the time of sale and purchase agreement. This is to align the practice with that for residential properties. This is the second meeting that we have had some substantive discussion. The first meeting was convened for the election of chairman only. So we understand that you want us to improve the bill. We are going to provide more statistics and justifications to support the relevant provisions. We are going to listen to the organizations and stakeholders again, and we will bring back their views to this Bills Committee. I hope this will be regarded as something positive, and we promised to do all these.
And several members, including Lam Tai Fai and Mr. Sin Tong Kai, also talk about the data from the market and also the impact of our measures. Well, we have done some. Work, and after listening to the comments today, we'll be focusing on several aspects and we'll be conducting a detailed analysis. We hope that at the next meeting we'll be able to give an account to you next time. So does the administration intend to cool the property prices by another 20%? Will there be further measures? Well, in the electrical brief that we gave to this council and also at the time of introducing these measures, both the STH and also the SFST, they've already said that there are many considerations. Property prices is one thing, as it's just said, there are external and internal factors affecting them. But then you cannot expect the administration to introduce a single measure that will be able to affect property prices. As we have repeatedly emphasized, in rolling out these measures, we are trying to target different areas, and there are different policy considerations. We're actually not just looking at property prices as the single indicator. There are other factors that have to be taken on board. Does that mean that you do not agree with is it that you do not agree with Stanley Wong's remarks? Sorry, Madam Chair. Yes, Mr. Sheck. Well, there's another Bills Committee. We had 9 meetings already, and the Deputy Secretary had been dragging her feet. So would it be like what she did last time by employing another delaying tactic? Because she's promised to listen to what we said, but then, well, yes, she might have heard it, but then she might not have listened. So it's like what she'd been doing at the other Bills Committee on the SSD and BSD. I think we have had 9 meetings already, and there were 3 meetings together, and she tried to look at it from another perspective. She said that she would listen to the views. But then what are you going to do? You're actually giving some hope to those speakers who are here today. You will have to be reasonable. Well, I'm sure members who are here, deputations, and also those in a public gallery, I'm sure you'll be monitoring closely the progress of this Bills Committee, whether or not the administration is listening, will there be changes, and so on. I'm sure that's a comprehensive process, and in due course, we'll ask the officials to come again to explain the policies to us. All right. So much for our discussion today. Anything that members would like to raise under AOB? If not, sorry, can I use a minute? I'd just like to get another minute. Well, for the real estate agents, the reason why we have to come out, as you can see, in 98, 99, 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, we just tightened our belt. Actually, the income was a lot less, and the transaction were a lot fewer. We never took to the streets because we knew that that's because of the hands of God that were interfering, and that's why the only thing that we could do was to put up with that, and then we would just work from 9 to 11 every day. But then on this occasion, that's because of the wrong policies introduced by the administration, the so-called 3 cooling measures. All right, all these have not been effective at all, and yet our livelihood has been affected. That's why we have done so voluntarily. We have all come forward. So please do take note of that. On so many occasions, we have never spoken up before. We have experienced lower ebbs than this one, and we've actually had our heads down, and we have just worked very hard on our own. But then on this occasion, this is a wrong policy. That's why we have to speak out. All right. The next meeting will be on the 2nd of July. It's a Tuesday from 4:30 to 6:30. And the administration has already given us a response on issues raised at the last meeting. All right, please do read that. And then next time we'll discuss again. And please do listen to the deputation's views today and then respond.